Order. Roll call, please.
Kolpak. Here. Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Mike, you want to lead us off here?
Yes, good morning. This is the reconvene of our Board of Equalization. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to do a recap of the pending appeals that the board put into a pending status back on April 9th. And then we'll do the various lists of appeals. We have a list of unresolved appeals. This is where we went out and did the analysis on the property and came back with a recommendation, and the appellant did not necessarily agree with us, and so we need the board to make an action on those. And then we have the list of resolved, and this is just simply the other way around where they agreed with what we had and they're good with it. And then we do have 3 appeals that we're going to be forwarding to the county, and that's simply that the appeal was made, but due to circumstances usually where the appellant was out of town and we weren't able to meet with them before this meeting, we simply just have to forward it on to the county so that we can actually get into the house and do a review of the property. And then we will finalize and certify the assessment. Again, as we're going through these, the board may change the value of any property as is reasonable to render taxation uniform. A brief recap, we had about 248 appeals this year. That is about 3.7% of the notices that were sent out. And that is a little bit up from typically we get 1 to 2% of the notices that we send out. So it's a little bit higher this year. I did check with a few other jurisdictions, and most of them were actually down from what happened last year. They had less appeals this year than we did. So, but again, now we did have less than we did last year because we had about 450 appeals last year. So, from that, from that measurement, we are down from what is typical, but we are up as a percentage of the total. Of the appeals that we went through, about half of them received a reduction, and the average reduction was about 6%. Are there any questions about any of the appeals at this time before we get into the lists? Okay. So we have 61 unresolved appeals, and again, the appellant may not agree with the value recommendation, so we need the board to look at it and decide what they wish to do. There's a few options that we have. We can make a group adjustment by motion, or we can do individual adjustments per parcel, or do select parcels for individual consideration, or a combination of the two. I would suggest, we do have one appellant online. If the board decides that they are willing to dialogue a little bit further about some of these appeals, then they can make that decision and open it up to obviously at this point we've only got one person who may wish to talk about it. So at this point it's up to the board. So
we have the speaker for TJ Maxx Plaza and Office Max and Chase Bank online. We have no other people in the room. What is the feeling of the commission? Would you want to listen to this, or do you want to approve the unresolved disputes?
Mr. Chair, I would suggest we listen to them.
Everybody okay with that? So there's nobody else in the room. So my presumption is we have one person we'll listen to, and then we'll make a motion on the unresolved appeals. So Mike, let's go to that TJ Maxx Plaza and Office Max.
Okay. So let's see.
Page 5 to 13 in our packet. And who do we have online, please?
Zachary Whitaker. I work with Invoke Tax Partners out of Texas.
Why don't you go ahead and present?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, panel. So, as previously stated, this is the TJ Maxx and Office Depot part. It's a shopping center. My main concern with the shopping center is there was a Bed Bath & Beyond that went bankrupt and was vacant last year. And so because of that, the actual expenses of this property are 55% of what the revenue was brought in for the shopping center. There's a huge vacancy as of 1/1 of this year. So we can't necessarily keep the value steady if we're trying to find the market value of this property. We're trying to find out what it would transact on an open market. And on the open market, an investor is going to come in and want a discount off of a vacant shopping center. So I do have a couple different pro formas in my packet. I assume you all have my packet evidence. The very first pro forma is based off of market rental rates. These are actual lease transactions that have happened in Fargo in the past 2 years. So these are actual leasings that have occurred. And the second pro forma is the actual income and actual expenses of the shopping center. And as you can see, the actual income that was incurred was 2.3 million and the expenses were 1.25 million. So it is the NOI is 45% of the actual income. And again, my opinion of value, it is aggressive. Between the two parcels combined as an economic unit, the current value is about 23,600,000. My opinion is 11,400,000. That's based off of the actual revenue and expenses of this property because we're trying to find out what this property would transact on the open market. And I did include in the very back of the packet, I included those lease comps for you to see the retail transactions that have happened, and these are dated in 2022 and 2023. So these are new leases of retail shopping centers. And I also included the actual income and expense statement for your review. Thank you very much.
What is the feeling of the commission? Do you want to retain the value as recommended?
Also move, and I have a question.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Preston, what's the question?
So oftentimes on these commercial properties, people are arguing the income approach. Do other states do it that way? Why do we constantly see that?
It's normal from a business practice for them to look at the income approach, and it is very typical for that to be the way that they look at these, especially for sales of real estate and things along these lines. The problem ends up being, from our perspective, is that we don't get that information very often. When we put out surveys and things along those lines, we rarely get a return. Now, not too long ago, we did do a survey to get information for income for hotels, and that return actually was relatively good. So we have started to use that as to basically just to try and gauge where we're at with those values. But it's kind of the type of thing where income is one approach that you can use, and from the business standpoint, we hear this all the time, that's what they're looking at when they do the transaction, when they determine how much they're going to pay for the property. But the other thing is that we need market rate information in order to figure out how to use the income approach, and we just don't get that information for our purposes to be able to do it in a reasonable way. So.
And just for the public that's not hearing and see it in their analysis, they go through different areas that have square footage and what the value is and average that out. And that's how you determine this particular property.
Yep. And what's on there is we're using basically the sales approach in this one to support the value that we have. So that's the best information we have in the current local market.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion, Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. I'm curious then, say they did sell their property and that their sale was based on, among other things, income, and that their sale price was less than we have it valued at significantly. How would you then assess that information or look at that information, given it's a reality of a sale?
So what we have to do is we try to make sure that if we're getting sales that are below what is it enough sales, one thing, to actually make a market, or is it a one-off type thing where it's just, okay, this was, because we can't predict what's going to happen in every situation with these sales. What we try to do is figure out what the market value is based off of the sales. If we get enough sales and it looks like we're high, we're going to adjust down to that. We don't necessarily, we're not allowed to do kind of like Prop 13 in California where the sale price is that's the current value. What we have to do is basically kind of through our model, come up with a value that makes sense in the overall market and is supported by what's happening in the sales. So that's what we did with the offices this year, where we had a number of sales that were high, where our valuation was higher than the sales actually occurring. So we did drop it. I mentioned at the last meeting, we did a 6% reduction on the offices. And so that's what we would do. Do we have a whole bunch of sales of these types of properties? No, we've got a few here, and some of them are even a little on the old side. So not a lot of support showing that we're high on those sales. But yeah, if it was showing that we were high, we would lower them.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. The other property was Chase Bank. You want to present your argument, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And this is a similar approach to the TJ Maxx Shopping Center. I do have multiple income approaches because at the end of the day, there's the lack of transactions, lack of sales because the interest rates are the way that they are. With the interest rates being up, commercial properties are not transacting as much as they used to. So of course there's going to be a lack of sales. That's why it's most appropriate to look at the income approach to see what these would transact for an investor to come in and purchase it. And so current value is 1.5 million, about 1.5 million. The very first income approach that I have is based off of the CoStar underwriting report. So CoStar is a commercial real estate program that appraisers and consultants both use for rental rates and for transactions in the market. What we did is we looked at the underwriting report. If CoStar were to come in and purchase this property, they look at comparable banks in the area and what they're leasing at, and it's an $18 a foot rent. And with the standard expenses, that is about 1.1 million. But then that's about 700,000. But the second income approach that I have is the actual income, the actual rent for the property and the actual expenses of the property. So this is a Chase Bank, but it is a leased Chase Bank. So the actual rent is important to analyze for this property, and that's about 1.1 million. And I have included rent comps, the underwriting report, and the financials for this property. So you'll be able to see all that in my packet. And I appreciate your time, panel.
Interesting thing on this is they bought a bank for 1.7 million, reconstructed a new bank for 2.4 million, and our value is 1.508 million. So it actually seems like we're lower than what you built it for. How do you address that?
Well, that would be a value and use situation. So it's the value that Chase has for the bank, but we're trying to look at the value of the market value of what it would transact on the open market. So the name brand tenant Chase lease fee value is different than a market value. But again, we don't need to dive too deep into the weeds with that. I just wanted to show you guys the actual income and expenses of this property and see what it's actually leasing for, because it is important for everybody's analysis.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is to retain current value. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Colpack?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. For all other properties, can I have a motion to approve the unresolved appeals?
So moved. Second.
Second. Any discussion?
First and who was second? Who was first and who was second?
I was first.
And Colpack?
Roll call
Second.
vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. List of resolved appeals. There's motion to adjust and retain values as recommended by city staff. This is pages 125 through 128.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Mike, am I supposed to do unresolved appeals 123 to 124?
That is actually the page I think you just did that. Sorry, yeah, that was actually your first motion. Yeah,
Okay,
that was just
okay.
the blanket motion if we didn't do any individuals. So, yep, you can go on to the
The list on approve and forward unresolved appeals to Cass County Board of Equalization. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mike, any explanation? No?
Nope, no, other than what I said already, we haven't been able to deal with them.
Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Certify the 2024 assessment. The suggested motion is approve the 2024 City of Fargo assessment roll valuations as equalized, and that the city auditor's office be directed to certify the assessments to the county. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Colpack, Preston. Roll call vote, please.
Colpack? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you.